Watch out for the moving goalpost in Jacksonville. It's coming, and I'll tell you who's doing it and why in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You heard what she said, man. Your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. You can find us in multiple places. First, wherever you get your podcast, when you're driving or at work, make sure you tap into that location every single day to make sure you don't miss an episode. And you can go over to the YouTube page. That's right, our YouTube page. Make sure you go over to Locked On Jaguars, hit the subscribe button. Please, please, please hit that like button. I got a whole bunch of people listening, and only about a tenth of them liking it. So I want you to hit the like button. And then make sure you also hit the bell so that you receive notifications each and every time you drop an episode. Shout out to our everydayers also. That's right. I'll get to y'all in just a second. Today's show is sponsored by FanDuel. That's right. FanDuel makes every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I mentioned those everydayers. Shout out to the everydayers, man, for joining us every single day. You can be one. All you got to do is join us every single day. Like my man Joseph at the airport, who saw me limping my butt down down the hall in the airport. He goes, hey, I'm in every day. I'm in every day. There you go. I said, what's your name? He said, Joseph. So my man Joseph listens to the show every day. We wanted to make sure we mention. I told y'all, I'll mention your name if you do that every single time. Now, look, here's what we're going to do. Shad said what? I'll tell you exactly what he said and why it made a lot of sense, but I was a little bit confused by the timing. We'll get to that in segment 3. Why the change in tone from the national media? Have y'all been seeing what I've been seeing when they talk about Trevor Lawrence and they talk about the Jaguars? Well, you know what? I think you have. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to tell you where you can go find it. And that's where we're going to start. How the NFL media is talking up the Jaguars. I thought about the movie Life when Eddie Murphy said, my daddy always told me when somebody walk up to you talking about the weather, you better grab your wallet, right? So I use that because it's like all of a sudden out of the blue, all of these people that question the Jacksonville Jaguars offseason have lately. So I want to call them by name, but I'm not necessarily going to do that. I will tell you Pro Football Talk is one. And I'm not saying that they were always negative on the Jaguars. It's just that it has lined up with a bunch of people that I like on social media, people that are NFL analysts of sorts, and how they've started to soften their stance when it comes to the prospect of the Jaguars being better, actually making excuses for Trevor Lawrence. And this is where this started at for me. It started when I kept seeing everyone repeat these videos saying Trevor Lawrence was running for his life. The Jaguars should be ashamed of themselves. How could Trevor Lawrence ever survive this? And they're sitting there playing all of these clips from the last season. And then there was another that said that Trevor Lawrence has the most drops in the NFL since he's been in the National Football League, or since over the last 2 years, he's had the most drops. And then they showed these other videos, the videos of people actually dropping the ball that are no longer here, touchdowns, over a dozen in critical moments and critical games. So it makes me think that, oh, wait a minute. Y'all finally went back and actually watched the tape that we were talking about when we were defending Trevor Lawrence. You finally saw what everyone else who has been watching the Jaguars every single week, every single play, every single down, you finally saw what we've been trying to tell you. Yeah, how he has more drops than anybody in the last couple of years. How he was running for his life literally every time he got the ball. Maybe not every time, but close enough that it felt like every time. And how even when I was on the Peacock and Williamson show last week talking about Trevor Lawrence, the one thing I said in my defense of him, and that was a bonus episode that you can find right here on Locked On Jaguars, wherever you get your podcast. I'm telling you, man, I told him, I said, he's trying to do too much. we have to also remember in the last 2 seasons, Trevor Lawrence is regular season wise. In the last 2 seasons, Trevor Lawrence is 18-16. Now, while that's not great, I think the expectations that people had on him, based on all of these things that all of these media types do, calling them the prince of whatever, and some of the fans around here, and I can understand the fans doing it because fans are fans, right? So I get why fans, had the attitude like we finally got, our football savior and all of this stuff. Some of those expectations were so big that it blinded people to look at the tape. They just looked at the stats and they looked at the bad plays and they said, well, that ain't what we thought he was going to be doing, right? But they had no inclination to try to look at the tape and explain exactly what happened. Now, by no means am I saying that Trevor Lawrence has been perfect. I'm not. I talked about the things that he needed to improve. My main thing is a sense and timing for the moment. When you need 3 yards, man, don't chunk the ball 19 yards down the field trying to show how nice your arm is. Just get the damn 3 yards, dump it off to that little running back over there and let him shake and bake somebody and get to the first down. Just take the easy stuff. And that goes along with me saying that he was trying to do too much, but I don't give him a whole bunch of blame for trying to do too much because there was a lot that needed to be done, and he didn't have a lot of help with people blocking for him and people catching for him, and that is obviously evident with the things that folks keep posting on social media. I want you to go on X and just Google Trevor Lawrence running for his life. Trevor Lawrence, offensive line. Trevor Lawrence, drops. And you'll see every single one of those things. And then every time I read a Jaguar fan that responds to this stuff, it's like, I tried to tell you. Yeah, I know I said it wrong, but that's kind of how people talk. It's like a kid. I tried to tell you. Yeah, we all tried to tell people. We all tried to tell people. But because of the expectations, folks will make a bigger attempt to pay attention to the transgressions than they will for the reasons that cause it, because the expectations was that he was supposed to be Superman and he wasn't supposed to be somebody affected by things around him like that. And one of the things that I said, and you can go all the way back to 2021 when I did this podcast, I said that the best thing they can do for Trevor Lawrence is insulate him. You have this talented football player, savant of a person that's going to work really, really hard in your organization. Build the infrastructure up around him so that talent can be used without fear of retribution for anything. But that's not what they did early on. Have they done it enough now to justify the change in tone? Yeah, they have, but they haven't done it since those people have said negative things. The tone changed after the Jaguars did everything that they did in the offseason, but it didn't change immediately. Folks were saying negative stuff about the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence because, remember, the offseason acquisition period ended, and then the contract negotiations happened, and then he got the contract, and that's where all of this stuff was bandied about they wouldn't pay him, and he hasn't lived up to it, and how can you do this, and how can you give a guy that kind of money? Well, guess what happened? Nothing on the football field happened. But all of a sudden, these narratives have started to switch. And I know exactly why. And you jokers are not slick. I know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it has absolutely nothing with how you feel about Trevor Lawrence. It has something to do with how you feel about yourself and how your opinion is going to look when things start to look different. So what you did was you went and took a closer look. And when you took a closer look, you said, oh, I see what the local people have been saying. Yep, you damn sure do. And I'm about to say something else to you too, because you ain't slick. You want to stay on that side. I want you to stay on that side, or at least wait until something on the field changes your opinion. And I'm going to let the fans know. Don't let them suckers into the barbecue yet, unless they really, 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 really show you that they deserve to come. Because a lot of people talk bad about Trevor Lawrence, and all of a sudden, without anything on the field changing, they're talking better about him and they're talking better about the Jaguars, right? We're going to see in segment number 2 exactly why they changed that tone. I'm going to get to it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. That's right, man. FanDuel is the absolute truth. And I'm telling you, even though all of these sports have stopped sporting the way we want them to, it does not matter, man. FanDuel is the absolute truth, man. And it is still hooking up fans. That's right. That's why they call it FanDuel. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. Now, remember, FanDuel is official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Baseball has it popping right now, along with the WNBA. But, man, check out those lineups in baseball. Make sure you know who's pitching and what the health of the bullpen is. That's right. Do all of that on FanDuel, man. Go on over there. FanDuel can make the most of your summer. All right, segment number 2 here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We always thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. So we're talking about the change in attitude. I've heard people talking about how deep the defense is and how the defensive line has gotten bigger and more stout. And I've heard people talking about Travis Etienne busting out this year. And I've heard people talking about how Evan Ingram is one of the biggest sleepers in fantasy football. And he called a guy a sleeper. They caught 100 balls last year and caught like 80 balls the year before that. But that's okay. If that's what you want to do, go ahead. The only people that's been sleep are people that haven't picked him on their fantasy team because he is a PPR machine. So glad you call a guy a sleeper that has about 180 balls that he caught in the last 2 years and got a contract extension a year ago. That's cool. At least you acknowledge it. So, and I am being a little contemptuous today because I just don't trust people when they start doing something that they haven't done. So there's this moving of the goalposts. And what I'm saying is it's not a moving of the goalposts first. We describe moving of a goalpost as a change in benchmark, right? A change in goal, a change in where a team, the line of demarcation where a team shows progress versus one where they don't. A year ago, it was the Jaguars losing in week 18 and not making the playoffs, as opposed to what happened the year before when they won week 18 and they went to the playoffs. So the benchmark is to at least get back to that point the next year and then try to push beyond it, maybe win an extra game. So they won a game in playoffs in 2022. In 2023, you have to at least win one playoff game and then have another real good game where you're right in it and maybe get a little closer or even win that one. That's what people hoped would happen. But last year was so frustratingly inconsistent, more so than the year before, because the Jaguars did everything in reverse. The Jaguars won early and lost late and then tried to get it together right before the playoffs, and that didn't work. As opposed to the year before, they lost early and won a whole bunch late and got hot at the right time and went to the playoffs and actually won a game that they probably shouldn't have won. In fact, they won a game to get into the playoffs that they probably shouldn't have won. But at that point, everything was going their way. And then they played well in the divisional round against the Chiefs. So this benchmark for it's usually 1 or 2 games. So I'm trying to measure out why all of a sudden that after all of free agency and after the draft, when people were still negative, right before Trevor got his money, then Trevor gets his money, and then all of a sudden everybody wants to start complimenting everything about the team. And I had to ask myself, why? Why is because I think during Trevor Lawrence's negotiation and when all of the discussion was going on about whether or not he was worth the money or should the Jaguars do it, what happened is people actually took a closer look and examined the team, and they actually took a closer look at everything the team had done. And they actually came away thinking, in my opinion, this is better than we thought. You know why? Because you probably shouldn't have been talking before you did all of that research, before all of this stuff, when you said all that. So now here's what happens. We move the goalpost by being complimentary. You go, how? That doesn't make sense. I'm about to make it make sense for you. If we admit that they're better and we start saying things that we've never said before about how much better they look, and man, there's a reason why he ran for his life. And he had to, because Luke Fortner just wasn't ready to go. And Their starting line only played together once all year. The guys, their starting five on the offensive line, they only had one game all year where they were out there together and they couldn't get the continuity. And they added Mitch Morse, who's a very, very good, durable leader in the middle of the team. So they should actually be better. And Travis Etienne, he's a good player. They got Gabe Davis. And this Brian Thomas Jr. kid looks like he's going to be a stallion to go along with Christian Kirk being healthy. And they fixed the defense. We really think they're really, really good. Well, who the hell does that sound like? That sounds like the people that cover this team locally. And not just me, but a whole bunch of other folks, doesn't it? It does. But here's what happens. Had those people stood pat on their opinions that this team wasn't very good and that Trevor Lawrence wasn't very good, they would have looked really, really bad this year if this team wins 11 or 12 games. Follow me. I hope you're tracking with me now. They would have looked bad. And the only reason I'm coming down on folks is it's never too late to find out the truth, or it's never too late to change your opinion, because it's not a fact that it's the truth. But if it's what you think is going to happen, the Jaguars are going to be better. It's never too late to admit that. Hell, I was wrong. I said I wouldn't have gave Trevor Lawrence a contract extension, and then I changed my mind before they did it and said, you know what? I probably would, because here's the alternative. So the thing is it's okay to be wrong. But here's the motivate. What is your motivation for changing your mind? Nothing has happened. Nothing. Minicamp, them running around in shorts, they ain't nothing happened that should affect the decision of a person that talks about sports for a living, because they should have had their opinion right the first time. You don't have to correct yourself when you've done the work. So we do the work here. I do the work every single day. And I changed my opinion because I started to see a direction. And I'm here every day. And I said, you know what? I've always said this, and anybody who's listening to this podcast knows, I said, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, because once I've realized what they're trying to do, I'll go back and say, okay, I see why they did that, or I see why they did this, and I understand this. Because a lot of times you don't really understand stuff because you're not in the shoes of the people that are over there making decisions. So you don't understand when they do this or when they do that, when they don't go out and get into the offensive line market. And that's what I thought they should have done on the interior at center and both guard spots. And then when you see the price tags, and I think, anybody in that business can tell you, they know stuff before everybody else. They knew it was going to cost you $28 million to get a guard. And they were just like, we ain't going to even be fooling with that, because that's going to put us in a bad situation. Once I saw the market, I go, I understand now why they re-signed Ezra. And I understand why they renegotiated Brandon Scherf and restructured his contract. And I understand why they're lucky and fortunate they got Mitch Morse and he got released from Buffalo. I really do get it, because it was going to be impossible to do what I wanted them to do. And that was to add 2 interior offensive linemen in free agency and then touch the offensive line 2 more times in the draft. It was just going to be impossible, especially when they lost Calvin Ridley. So here's the thing. If those people that thought the Jaguars were going to be poor are now saying, you know what, we're going to justify some of those things. By the way, those things that they're using to justify Trevor Lawrence have been on tape since last year. They could have already done that. They could have already talked about the drops in the offensive line. But you know why they didn't? They have no reason to. Now that Trevor Lawrence got paid, we're going to be complimentary. We're going to say, okay, they should have paid him. He's a top 12 quarterback now. And they're paying him for what he's going to do in the future. They should have given him a little bit more money. They're doing that because they're moving the goalposts. It's not going to be about Trevor winning 11 or 12 games now, because they already admitted that they think the Jaguars have fixed themselves enough that he's going to do at least what he did the last 2 years, which is win 9, right? And contend for a playoff spot. They believe Trevor Lawrence is going to battle C.J. Stroud, and one of them's going to make the playoffs as a division winner, and one of them's probably going to make the playoffs as a wild card. The goalpost will now move. Is he better than that guy? Is he better than Burrow? Is he better than Josh Allen? Is he really better than C.J. Stroud, even though some people don't think he is? Is he better than Tua Tagovailoa? Is he going to be able to challenge Patrick Mahomes? Is he better than Lamar Jackson? It's not going to be, should he be in the same category? It's going to be, is he better? So they're going to move the goalposts, because they already know Trevor's going to be better. They already know that. They already know he's going to be better. But now it's going to be, yeah, he's better, but he's not as good as everybody thought he was going to be. That's exactly what they're doing. They're going to move the goalposts and they're going to try to do it and slide it by you. And the only reason I say that because like I say, it's never too late to change your mind, but you got to tell me the reason why you changed your mind when nothing has seemingly happened since you gave an opinion before that it was bad. Something happened. Shad Khan spoke about team building, and I'm happy about it, and then I'm confused about it. I'm going to explain exactly why I'm happy and confused, but I'm going to do it after I let you know to tune in to Locked On Sports Today. If you're tired of watching Fox Sports and ESPN all day and hearing those dudes yell and scream, you mute your TV and you still hear them yelling and screaming, right? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I talk about Shad, what he said to the media. We'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right. In the past, I have criticized Shad Khan for not really having his finger on the pulse of the team. In the past, I've said that their messaging has been a little bit off and you'd like to hear from Shad. So there's no way on earth that when Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, actually does speak out and says something profound and actually something that I think needed to be said, there's no way I'm going to criticize it. Except if I'm a little bit confused at the timing and why he said it, because it more or less matches last offseason than this offseason. Want to know what I'm talking about? I'm going to tell you exactly why right here. I'm going to read a quote, right? I'm going to read a quote. NFL.com. It's from NFL.com. And I got something in my ear here that's getting on my nerves. All right, here we go. I read it on NFL.com, but I saw it in a couple of other places. He wants to build through the draft. Quote unquote, we cannot have this addiction to free agents. That's only a part of it, man. I got to find the rest of it here, but I had to get off that one place where I was because they had music playing in my ear. But yeah, okay, that's cool. I get it. I understand. You're right, Shad. That's exactly what they should do. But last offseason, that's what they said they were going to do. They said they were going to do that last offseason, so they kind of cherry picked in free agency and got a couple of people, but nothing of significant consequence. And then they drafted, using all these draft picks in a draft that everyone said wasn't very good. They got a couple of nice players out of there. They got Anton Harrison, who I think is going to be a future star, and then Johnson, the safety, Antonio Johnson. I think he's a good player. The other guys we haven't seen do a whole bunch yet. And the ones that we did see, like Brenton Strange, didn't do much, and then Tank Bigsby didn't do much. And so it kind of put people down on a little bit. Here's what Shad said. For us, winning now is an expectation. I love it. So you talk about growth in a football team. They had back-to-back winning seasons. It happened 5 years ago or 10 years ago. You'd be patting yourself on the back. Now it's like, yes, you want to have those winning seasons, but I think you want to be in the playoffs. You want to be in the playoffs. That's right. So the expectations are raised up. Shad is now saying that this is a draft and develop team, that they can't live on free agency. The problem is this past offseason, that's exactly what they did. They lived off free agency. So the timing of this coming a whole year after even Doug and GM Trent Baalke, even they admitted, look, we're going to be a draft and development team. We're not going to be all busy in free agency like that. That was last year. Then it kind of backfired on them a little bit because it appeared that they took their foot off the gas and they kind of rested on their laurels and thought they had arrived, right? And then this year they went heavy in free agency again. And now Shad saying that they're not going to go in the free. It's just like the timing of it. Like, I love hearing them say it. I think what he's saying is this. In a nutshell, the Jaguars are trying to correct their mistakes from the past by trying to win now, and they needed to spend some money in free agency. So they spent the money they were supposed to spend this year and last year in free agency. But he said that we ain't going to do that no more. So that's why they made some additions to the personnel staff. I think they're going to approach things a little bit different. I think the coaching staff is on notice that they need to see market improvement from these players from a week-to-week basis. Thus, some of the messaging and some of the things that you've heard about Parker Washington, how Devin Lloyd has changed his body, how Lacey, the defensive tackle, how he looks, and they're talking about him squatting. They're talking about Cooper Hodges and his versatility. I even heard some positive things about Yasir Abdullah. And they keep talking about the young corners that they have, Monteric Brown and guys like that. And folks, they made some additions, but they're saying, nope, we're going to draft and develop. And then you're hearing that Tyson Campbell may get extended. Andre Cisco may get an extension. Josh Allen already got his. Trevor Lawrence. So maybe what Shad was doing was say, okay, we signed Trevor and we signed Josh to the two biggest contracts ever. That's the start of who we are and who we want to be. We want to retain our own guys. Maybe that was the reason for the timing, is because of those two signings. But those two signings, in my opinion, were no-brainers. It's not going to be them. It's going to be the other guys. It's going to be Walker Little. What happens with Walker Little? Can Walker Little play well enough this year that you offer him a contract extension, knowing Cam Robinson's leaving, therefore not creating another hole in the offseason, and then you can really go into the draft, hopefully picking later, and then still draft the best player available? It's stuff like that makes me start thinking, like, I'm just wondering about the timing of everything. Good. I'm not complaining. I've been wanting Shad to say stuff like this for a long time. And what he said is factually correct. It is factually correct. It is just yet to be seen whether Doug Peterson is the coach for it or Trent Baalke is the GM to be doing that. And can they be in good enough lockstep at a very high level in order for that plan to work? All of it's yet to be seen, but the Jags are getting closer and getting a little bit better with the messaging and having the message actually be one that most people believe with, just random football people that know the game and that understand what's going on. So now we got to see it on the field. And training camp starts really, really soon, man. And I cannot wait for it. I cannot wait for the competition. I'm going to talk about on tomorrow's show. I'm going to talk about training camp battles and things to look for, specific things that I want to see. And it ain't kumbaya. I want to see chippy. I don't want to see stuff that's going to end up getting a penalty, but I want to see guys really, really fighting for that stake. I want to see some grit. And I know we have laughed at that and used that as a punchline when Tom Coughlin said it years ago, but that's what I want to see, because I think that little bit of hunger is what's going to push this team over the hump and get over there. I told y'all, man, to go from a 9-win team to a 12 to 13-win team might be harder than going from a 1-win team to a 9-win team. And we're going to discuss that one too. So we'll probably hit that Wednesday. Why this is such a critical and hard part for teams like the Jaguars to get over their hump. So that'll come Thursday after we do the show tomorrow about training camp battles. I think it all lines up perfectly. And then Friday, we'll hit you with some more mailbags from fans where we mention fans' names and bring up their concerns, and we discuss it here as a family on Locked On Jaguars. Make sure, though, that you check out Locked On Sports today, man, because Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Man, you guys, it's been real. Went to New Orleans, had a good time for my birthday all weekend. Miss my boy Ross Jackson, though. I wish I could have ran into him, but we just never crossed up. But had a really, really good time in the Big Easy, but there's nothing like home. Absolutely nothing like home. By the way, the Jaguars need to do that and win all of their games at home next year. That'll make their season a lot easier. All right, until the next time, you guys hang tough. Take care of each other. We'll see you on Locked On Jaguars.